Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Paterson.
Good afternoon.
Well, on this beautiful June 19th, as we celebrate Juneteenth, we are here to commemorate our ancestors and those who have come before us. As we speak, I see our council members come forward, Councilman Bill McCoy, Councilwoman Lalisa Mims, and at this time, before we start, we'll have greetings from the mayor of the great city of Paterson, Mayor Andre Sayegh.
Good afternoon. I'm encouraged to see that the world is starting to recognize that Black Lives Matter. And in addition, the world has to recognize that Black history matters as well. And that's why we are here today. And that's why I issued an executive order declaring today, Juneteenth, a holiday in the city of Paterson. And Congressman Pascrell, thanks for joining us. I will tell you why Black Lives Matter. Because when I was in school, Akbar, we learned about the Greeks and the Romans, and we should. But Africa had outstanding civilizations as well. Abdul, if you look at Mali with Mansa Musa, an African ruler who is considered to be the richest man who ever lived, hailed from Africa and a great civilization of Mali. No disrespect to Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates, but it was a man in Africa who was considered to be the richest man who ever lived. And let's think about Songhai, another great civilization in Africa, with Askia Muhammad. He was a ruler as well, but that part of history is not being taught. And if there's one takeaway we can get from now is to infuse our textbooks, American history textbooks, with the history of Africa and where it all started. That is world history, but it's American history too, because the story of African Americans started in Africa. That is correct. Black history is world history. And we could also learn lessons from one of my favorite leaders in history, Marcus Garvey. We could all use some more Marcus Garvey. Why? Because at a time when people were being told that black skin was a mistake, he was saying, it's not a mistake. God doesn't make mistakes. Black is beautiful. And today we stand together to reflect, to rejoice, and to unite under the banner that black is beautiful, that black lives do matter, and black history matters too. And so July 4th did not mean independence for everyone, but Juneteenth means freedom. And today we celebrate freedom and let freedom ring. Thank you very much.
I want to thank the mayor, who is a great historian. And the facts are that we as black folks here in America since 1619 have not been free, totally free. The argument that we're having right now that Black Lives Matter has to be the most ridiculous thing ever. Yes. This country was built on the back of black people. So don't forget that. And realize slavery is not part of African American history.
Yes.
No other people have been captured and brought to a country and disrespected like African American people, meaning black people. So make that perfectly clear. There are two different levels of it. Two different levels. We're talking about civil rights and moving on. So make it perfectly clear. At this time, we have the Dean of the City Council, Councilman Bill McCoy.
Thank you, Assemblyman. It's a beautiful day, and we rejoice today as we celebrate this important time at a place that is significant to our community, to highlight our freedom. I'm glad that the mayor referred you back to Marcus Mosiah Garvey, who I remind everybody hails from the small island of Jamaica, where I came from. And in fact, we share the same birthday. So when people talk about black folk, remember, we're talking about the entire diaspora, not just the folks that are here, but our Caribbean community as well, those folks that are black and don't realize it yet. But after this movement is finished, everybody will realize that all people are black people.
Oh,
Because
regain braces.
because if you believe that all men came from one family, then you recognize your roots. So today we come to celebrate this important mark. I'm glad that number 45 has finally come around to understand and appreciate Juneteenth and what it means, and that is so significant. But ladies and gentlemen, together we have strength. Let us not divide ourselves, but let us unite and come and fight on a common cause, that freedom belongs to everyone. And certainly today we echo, in the name of George Floyd, Black Lives Matter. It's ridiculous that we have to say it, but it's important that we say it, because thank God somebody today is getting to recognize the significance of all of that. Thank you for coming out. It's been a beautiful day. Enjoy. God bless. Melanin is good.
Yes, it is.
Thank you, Councilman. That's right. And at this time, we have another fighter who's fought for the city of Paterson as her time before she was an elected official, as part of the great clergy in the city of Paterson. Somebody who truly understands that when these young people are fighting throughout the country and boycotting and marching and talking about defunding police, it's not talking about taking the money away from police. It's talking about putting money where it belongs. It's talking about making sure that the Paterson Public Schools is not underfunded by $300 million. It's about making sure that the Recreation Department is not 0.2% of the entire budget. It's about making sure that women health care is fully funded.
Yes.
And that's why we have Lalisa Mims as a councilwoman in the city of Paterson, our great councilwoman, Lalisa Mims.
Yes.
Good day, Paterson. It's a great day since 1865. Never forget that year. 1865 was the day they declared us free, but they still didn't give us our rights. They declared freedom, but today we are still fighting for our rights to have a seat at the table. There are many places they don't want us to sit, but we're still fighting for a seat at the table. We're fighting in Paterson, we're fighting in Trenton, we're fighting in Ecuador, we're fighting all over the world. As a Pattersonian, African-American female here in Paterson, I've traveled to the motherland of Africa 10 times. So when we talk about the rich soil of Africa, it's not in a book for me, I've been there. When we talk about getting down on the ground and kissing the ground of Africa, I've been there. I've been there to see the poverty, I've been there to see the richness, and so as long as I live and I have breath where George Floyd could not breathe, I'm gonna keep fighting to ensure that African Americans have a seat at the table. It is right for us to be there. It is fair for us to be there. Juneteenth is a day of freedom, even though we're not fully free. I'm gonna keep fighting until freedom is really a reality. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we will be free at last. God bless you and God bless the great city of Paterson.
Next, we have the birthday lady,
Yes.
Councilwoman Ruby Cotton, who is going to bring some more knowledge to us and just bring greetings briefly before we get to our congressman. Then we have some outstanding young people who are going to do some work for us today. And we must remember, a friend texted me this morning, when Africans were so-called freed from slavery, the owners received $300 per slave. That's called reparations. We never received our reparations. So I think we are owed $17 trillion in reparations. So when people are saying that we're looking for handouts when it comes to businesses, we're looking for handouts when it comes to going to school, we're looking for handouts when it comes to loans, we are not. They owe us $17 trillion. So next we have our Councilwoman Ruby Cotton.
Actually, if I may intervene for a moment, she is history in the making because Ruby Cotton was the first African-American woman to ever be the mayor of the city of Paterson. Let's recognize that.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. I want to say good afternoon to everyone.
afternoon.
I just want to say I'm so proud of my Assemblyman Benjie Wimberly putting this together for us, to our mayor, to our city council members. It is so important. And me as a child working on a farm, you must never forget the struggles that we had to get to where we are. We still got many more to go, but we must never forget. And those who are elected, who are African American, must never forget all the struggles that our ancestors had for me to be sitting at the table, for Councilwoman Mims to be sitting at the table. It's so important that we must remember all of that and bring our children and let them understand what the struggle was for all of us, for our ancestors, our grandmothers, our grandfathers, our aunts, our uncles. But I'm so happy that we're able here to do this today on Juneteenth. You know, it's so important that we never forget. And I just want to say to you all out there, we will never forget, and we're all in this together. And I always say it's never an I, it's a we. We together can accomplish so many things. Yes. Just remember we. It's not about me, it's about we. And so let's remember we. God bless you all. Thank you. Thank you, my Assemblyman. Thank you so much. He want to put this good job.
No, whatever's good.
I know.
Next, we have the person who's down in Washington, D.C., who is fighting number 45. According to number 45, he made Juneteenth famous. I don't know what country or what rock he's been under, but it makes no sense that he even come to that. 401 years, and he's talking about he made us famous. If that does not motivate you to get out and vote in November, I don't know what will. And I know the person that supports us and who's been endorsed by the Congressional Black Caucus is our Congressman Bill Pascrell.
Yes, yes. Go get him.
Yes.
Thank you, Benjie. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice, Martin Luther King said. It bends towards justice. So we are not afraid, are we? Ladies and gentlemen, if you'll bear with me, my brothers and sisters, we've lived together all my life in Paterson. And this is the speech I presented on the floor of the House exactly 20 years ago today. Juneteenth. In fact, most of the people, Congress people, did not know what I was talking about when I said Juneteenth. Different story today. Juneteenth is also the name of a great book written by whom I consider one of the great writers of the 20th century. That is Ralph Ellison. He wrote The Invisible Man. It's often been misunderstood. Yes, the Supreme Court made a decision in Dred Scott, but that decision was overturned in 1862. 3 years before, exactly to the day of Juneteenth. Sometimes the Supreme Court needs to be corrected by the Congress of the United States. The Emancipation Proclamation receives its national appreciation, its rightful appreciation, as the gateway to freedom for African Americans. But it took a civil war, it took the 13th Amendment to the United States to formally outlaw slavery. That Emancipation Proclamation resulted in millions of slaves throughout this country who were unaffected by the provisions of the proclamation. And as you have already heard, word traveled very slowly, did not get to Galveston, Texas till 2 years later. So this is indeed a celebration today. Time for us to reflect on what this meant. Juneteenth serves as an historical milestone. People of the triumph of the human spirit over the cruelty of slavery. I think we should all take a moment not only to recognize the moral bankruptcy of slavery, but also to celebrate the achievements of those living in such inhumane conditions. Despite the rigors of slavery, African Americans contribute everything from agricultural inventions and medical breakthroughs to music. They contributed a legacy of culture, of language, religion, a lesson of survival. Ralph Ellison, who I believe is one of the great writers of the 20th century, he was an African American and was frequently misunderstood. The genius of blacks, the black culture, was not in race, he wrote, but in human beings who bore the race. Blood and skin do not think. There were brutal, there were dehumanizing acts against blacks, no question about it. But the progress and the opportunity for blacks in America cannot depend on white oppressors changing their behavior, changing their work, changing their mind, as much as it would depend on individuals understanding and believing in their own God-given resources, their own skills, your own talents, your own creativity, your own persistence, who you are. This profiling a whole group of people is not acceptable. And it is an attempt to rob one of his individuality, of each personality, and of each uniqueness. And I say that when I drive through Paterson, when I come back from D.C., and I see some people, all colors, who've given up, throw in the sponge and say, what the hell? Ellison believed that to believe solely in the idea that white oppression determined the freedom of blacks was to minimize the power of each black person, and it would make redemption depend upon how it was treated. We don't accept that. Lincoln did not free the slaves. The slaves freed themselves. This is a perspective. The outskirts of society allowed him to run point on its greatest ideals while grieving over its greatest failures. He argued against the idea that there existed a required mode of racial anger. You're supposed to be angry this way. There were, he contended, many possible responses to injustice. He wrote, there was even an American Negro tradition which abhors as obscene any trading in one's own anguish for gain or sympathy. Those are powerful words, my friend. Powerful words, particularly in our society today. So we have decided, for the most part, that each black person in our society is an incarnation. Someone wrote that of his race. As Edward Rothstein wrote, being battered about by both blacks and whites who imposed their visions of racial identity, Lincoln freed the slaves. Ellison would say only slaves could free the slaves. My friends, I won't read you the rest, but I want you to know that that speech given 20 years ago, which I wrote, is my testimony today to all of us in Paterson. We have responsibility to our brothers and sisters. And as Martin Luther King said, that rod of bends towards justice. Yes. Be hopeful. Yeah. Be celebrating. Be connected to your neighbor. You cannot talk about us unless you live with us. I'm tired of people living in enclaves telling us how to live in the city of Paterson.
Yes.
Tired of. And you have to stand up and speak and be heard. God bless the mayor, the council, and God bless all of you for being here this morning on a heck of a hot day.
Oh
Bye-bye.
You ain't lying.
At this time now,
Yes.
between Andre and the Congressman, you guys have yielded your time for the rest of the program, but we appreciate you. But we would like to acknowledge the Deputy Mayor of Hackensack, Dave Sims, is with us here today. Thank you, Dave, for coming out.
Dave.
We also have some people who are historians within themselves here in the city of Paterson for various reasons. We have Dr. Joseph Fulmore here with us today, former superintendent. Skip Van Rensselaer, whose family is part of the history of Paterson, here with us today. We have Shelton Prescott.
Yes,
Where's Shelton at? I know I
Syracuse.
saw him here. Where's Shelton back here?
Syracuse.
Dalton Price.
Oh, yeah?
Yes. Reverend Clayton, you can work your way up here because I'm going to need you for 2 seconds. 2 seconds, but you are part of our history, so don't go anywhere. Get up here. Thank you. But at this time, the mayor alluded to it before, and the councilman talked about it, the whole diaspora of what America's all about. So people need to understand through the slave trade that our brothers and sisters in South America, the Caribbean, you look through there, Africa is Afrikaans. So you have African blood in you. There is no pure blood if it didn't come from the motherland, from the true land. So my Dominican brothers and sisters, my Puerto Ricans, you are part of this issue. George Floyd in the 8 minutes and 46 seconds should be a concern to you. Think about it. There are many of you who are from the southern part of the Caribbean who are darker than me, and when you get pulled over, you're going to get the same treatment as me. So you should be concerned. So at this time, I bring you the councilman of the 5th Ward, Louis Valens.
Louis!
Louis the Great.
Well, you know, the honor and the glory is to the Lord first. I always say that. You know, one of the things I was thinking, what I'm going to say, I'm going to make it short and sweet. A lot of our dignitary has said it all. But if you're not going to be in the front line with us, don't call yourself Afro-American. If you're not going to be in the front line with us, don't come in the behind the screen and say I was there when you was never there. So if you're going to be with us, don't try to be fake and funny. We are real and true. Whoa. So let me tell you something. When I see you, I see my grandmother. When I see you, I see my kids. When I see you, I see George Floyd. When I see George Floyd, I see you. I'm a George Floyd too. So everything that's going on in our city and around our city and our state, our nation, no matter what country you come from, no matter what language you speak, no matter what kind of rice you eat, it's still rice. And we need to be together, and we need to move the city forward, and we need to stay together. And if you hurt, I hurt, everyone hurt. So God bless you. Let's keep on working.
Yes, Louis. Oh, Louis is too good. Louis, you were so good, you knocked the wreath down. What happened?
Councilman Velez, I would be short of saying that was powerful. But it's to the point. And I would be really remiss if I didn't acknowledge one of our true community servants and one of our seasoned veterans and queens of our communities, Ms. Wahida Muhammad. And I would ask Ms. Wahida Muhammad to come forward with us also. No, I'll tell you why. You're not going to speak, but just come forward.
He said she's not going to speak. It's not a council meeting.
But at this time, Ernie Rucker's here. Ernie, I yield your minutes. I got your minutes, so don't worry about it. We're good.
Rule.
But at this time, before we have the libation, we should have opened up with prayer. And Reverend Clayton, on this day, on Juneteenth, we thank the mayor, we thank the city council for acknowledging this day. We just want it to be official. We want it to be official. Make this an official holiday, a paid holiday next year for all city employees, and hopefully it becomes a national holiday. So at this time, before we do the libation, we're going to pray for Juneteenth. We're going to pray for the families of Floyd and Ahmaud and so many other people. But I bring forward our great pastor from St. Luke Baptist Church, Kenneth Clayton.
I like the shirt.
And the president of the NAACP.
And the chaplain for the police.
May we bow our heads together. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, Thou hast brought us thus far on the way. Thou hast by thy might led us into thy light. Keep us forever in the path we pray. Unto thee, O God, we come on this day that we celebrate freedom, to ask you to give us power to reflect upon those whose lives have been lost recently and in many years past. May we be empowered today to let freedom ring in Paterson and around the world. In Christ's name we pray.
Amen.
All right. At this time, though, we're going to let our youth take over. We have Brother Raheem Smallwood, who will lead us in libation. And just a reminder, tomorrow morning, Saturday, June 20th, we will be assembling at the Masonic Temple at 224 Martin Luther King Boulevard, and we will be marching in peace and solidarity to Eastside Park to acknowledge Juneteenth. So please come with your mask. We will socially distance. Let's make sure it's loud and clear that people of all color are going to march together. we as African Americans have fought for every right there is. We will fight for women's rights. We will fight for gay and lesbian rights. We will fight for the undocumented. We need everybody to come together. All of those 52 nationalities that we talk about in the city of Paterson, it shouldn't just be black folks out here tomorrow. It should look like a rainbow coalition when you talk about a real color, the real color of this community. And when you talk about this 8.4 square miles, there are so many pockets to it. And we will fight for you. We will fight for you. We need you to stand up tomorrow and march maybe 1.5 miles to Eastside Park.
right.
No ifs, ands, or buts, no questions. I don't care what your race, religion, color, or creed is. You need to be there tomorrow morning. So at this time, Raheem Smallwood will take over for the libation.
Smallwood. Yeah. Walaikum salam.
We normally do libation in the beginning of any program that represents people of African descent. However, we understand that there's a protocol that's been given, and we respect that protocol. However, one thing that we must always do, and that is to acknowledge our elders and ask them for their permission to speak. So I'm going to ask Sister Wahid if I have permission, and then I'm going to turn to this side and ask Dr. Fulmore if I may have permission. And we do that because we understand that it's our elders that has made it possible for us to have understanding, to have clarity, to have struggle and purpose. And if I say something out of order, or if we're out of order, it's our elders' job to put us back in place, to tell us what we need to do to move forward. So giving honor and praise to the Creator, who's known by many names. Libation is our way of acknowledging our African descent, but more importantly, acknowledging all those whose footsteps we follow and upon whose shoulders we stand, and who has a responsibility that we have to carry on that legacy, but more importantly, carry on the work, because we are our ancestors. We call on their spirit to come into this place, the Underground Railroad. However, the work that we do, we've already been given the task, we've already been given the tools, we've already been given the knowledge. The rest is just struggle. And that's what we see happening all around this country and all around the world today. The libation ceremony. The libation ceremony is done in praise and honor of the collective commitment to the work and struggle of our ancestors. It is both instructive and inspirational, as well as mandatory within the framework of our value system. For it is they, forefathers and foremothers, who through their love, labor, and struggle laid the foundation for us, pushed our lives and history forward, and gave us basic principles by which we could live our lives in strength, dignity, brotherhood, and sisterhood. Pouring libation and making a libation statement is both an honorific assertion and call to carry on the struggle and work the ancestors began. It is more clearly defined as a recognition and respect of the contribution of those who came before us, of our history, and the model it offers us to emulate. To honor our ancestors, it is to honor the best you, totally unified in the struggle for Black love, Black determination, and more importantly, Black freedom. In completing libation, it requires, just as Assemblyman Wimberly said, the entire community to come together under one umbrella and to take part in what we call call and response. Call and response is where I make a call out to you, family, and you respond. And your response is Harambe. Can we say Harambe?
Harambe.
And Harambe means let us pull together. Thank you, sister. What I'm going to need you to do is raise your right hand as high as you can and open up your fingers for space. When I make the call and you hear Harambe, you pull down in a fist, a collective strong fist, and you make the call Harambe back, okay? The young brothers who are with me, Buds and Sisters Emoja, this young brother, Nasir Smallwood, let's give him some love. He just graduated high school from Eastside High School, a senior and going off to college. He's going to pour libation. He's going to pour into what we call the four winds, north, south, east, and west. Once he pours, then you'll see me pull down and you pull down with me. We good?
Yes.
All right. Let's get them up high, open. When I make the call and you hear Harambe, you pull down in a fist, a collective strong fist, and you make the whole Harambe back. Okay? The young brothers who are with me, Buzz and Sisters Emoja, this young brother, Nasir Smallwood, let's give him some love. He just graduated high school from High School, senior, and going off to college. He's going to pour libation. He's going to pour into what we call the four winds, north, south, east, and west. Once he pours, then you'll see me pull down and you pull down with me. We good?
We good.
All right. Let's get them up high, open. For the Creator, who provides all things great and small. Harambe! For Africa, the motherland, cradle of civilization.
Good move. Harambe. No, not yet.
Harambe! For the ancestors and their indomitable spirit. Harambe! For the elders, from whom we can learn much. Harambe! For the warrior kings and queens who struggle on our behalf. Harambe! For our youth who represent the promise of tomorrow. I can't hear you, family. I need that orange man to hear you. While he's making a greater toast, he needs to hear your energy. I need that orange man to hear you. For our struggle and the remembrance of those who have struggled on our behalf. Harambe! To all those whose names have not been called, but nevertheless deserve the same honor and respect of those we call. We say, Harambe! At this time, I'm going to ask the young lady to come up.
People think why Gravenstein was the last state to receive the message. Number one, the messenger, people believe that the messenger was killed. Number two, the enslavers just didn't want to tell their slaves or the black people, because they weren't slaves, they were black people, they were people.
Thank you.
No problem. They basically, they knew about it. This is the assumption. They knew about what was going on, but they refused to inform the people working for them because they didn't want to lose that free labor they were receiving. The third reason was the federal troops wanted the people of Texas to benefit from the last cotton harvest. That makes no sense. It makes sense to them, but that doesn't make sense for us. It is not fair that the black people in Texas were subjected to this and they couldn't be free when everybody else was, and nobody else knew about what was going on. So I'm here to explain how is this an impact to us today? So since slavery was so-called abolished, 1865, a lot of people, the so-called part, a lot of people don't believe that, and I'm one of those people. Today, there are over 50% of black people who are locked up in prisons for petty crimes. And there's a reason for this. After slavery was so-called abolished, they created a system that was prison, basically prison today, that locked up black people for petty crimes so they can also pay off labor and they can benefit, the white people can benefit from us. And today, we are still going through that. Today, there are more black people there is any ethnicity, any race in prison. And that is unfair, and I'm here to talk about it. We are here to talk about it. Our brothers, our sisters, our uncles, our grandmas, young women are suffering in prison. You can't even imagine how many documentaries I watched of 13-year-old black girls being sent to prison for no reason. I can't even talk about how innocent black men are dying in the streets.
That's right.
And innocent black men are being arrested and beaten up and put in prisons for robbery, or for being blamed for things they didn't do. There were so many cases of white women blaming black people for crimes that they did not commit. Many young boys, Trayvon Martin, there was this young boy playing with a gun, a fake gun. Tamir Rice, there we go. He was playing with a toy gun, a toy water gun. Policemen shot this kid. Are we gonna let this stand by? Are we just gonna sit here and watch this happen?
No.
No, we're not.
No.
I would like to leave off on this note. There is a man named Marcus Garvey. He immigrated to the States from Jamaica in 1916. He saw the problems that us black people were going through here, and he wanted to do something about it. And he created the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League. This was the first black-led nationalist movement from 1979 to 1926. He saw his goal was for us black people to come together and create a new system that was fair to everybody, including us. He wanted us to work together. So today we celebrate Juneteenth, and today we are together, and I am so happy to see so many people from different backgrounds to be here and help us come together. This is why we march. This is why the Black Lives Movement matters. Yes, we know that all lives matters, but today Black Lives Matter, and always Black Lives Matter. That is us.
Good job.
All right. At this time, we'd like to thank everybody who came out. I see the fire chief, the police chief is here, Director Speziel.
Yes.
Another legend in the city of Paterson, Miss Bradley. Where's Miss Bradley? I saw Miss Bradley here. So many people here. We also like to acknowledge the First Lady of Paterson, Andre Sayegh. Appreciate it. She needs a raise, because if she could put up with this guy, she should be getting paid a lot of money. But at this time, we are going to thank everybody. Tony Perez, where's Tony at?
Tony.
Always a friend.
Here.
Yes. And at this time, the mayor will lead the leaf run with the city council.
Yes.
And we want to remind everybody once again, tomorrow 9 a.m. Tomorrow 9 a.m. And I see the Arabic American Association is here supporting us, and we'll see you tomorrow morning. We appreciate you, and we appreciate everybody who's out here today. Today at City Hall, 5 p.m., the pastors will be praying, and that's 155 Market Street. You haven't moved, right? 155 Market Street at 5 p.m. The pastors will be praying for Juneteenth, so please make sure you come out this. This is not going to be a fire sale, a one-time thing. George Floyd's life has to matter. It has to be matter. This cannot be something that we get hot for a minute and then we stop. We really need to pick up the pace. And when you see these young folks rioting in the streets, the riot is the voice of the unheard. That's the problem. Nobody's listening to them. We have to remember 25 years ago, some of these faces were here when Lawrence Myers was shot and killed in the city of Paterson. And that officer was not, he was let go and whatever you want to call it, and it was done. But there were so many promises during that time to our young black folks. Many of those people who are now, 35, 40 years ago, going through here, we never lived up to that promise. But when those young people during the Lawrence Myers riot start breaking windows and burning stuff in Paterson, we made a lot of promises to them. And part of it was education, recreation, healthcare. And 25 years later, we haven't lived up to it. We haven't lived up to it. 30 years ago, Philip Pennell was killed in Teaneck. So let's not forget, this is not a new situation. This is a 401-year situation. So make that perfectly clear. So at this time, as the dean, you want to lead the wreath ceremony with the mayor.
Paterson family, let's have a round of applause for our master of ceremonies, Assemblyman Benjie Wimberly.